advice would you give your son in regards to romantic relationship?
Okay, I have two pieces of advice. The first one is, unless you're being abused or you're really being mistreated, try not to involve third parties in your relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Don't gossip about your girl to your boys. Don't like tell them when she's annoyed you and stuff like that, because their perception of your girl will start to shift. And but they don't understand the context of the love that you have for her. So when you're speaking to them about her, they will they will remember the negative shit that you said about her, and it will influence the way that they will influence the advice they give you. So really, I mean, it's fine to go to your boys for advice about um, something that you like you're struggling with, but try to deal with your problems with your girlfriend, because you both are you're both inside the context. You both understand the love you have for each other, but your boy is only going to be looking for your best interest at heart. But sometimes your best interest is not what is best for the relationship.
Yeah.
So yeah, never talk shit about your girl to anyone,
Mm.
um, because you'll end up forgiving her, and they won't. It's true.
Yeah.
And secondly, don't lose the softness that you have for your girlfriend. You should always, everything she says should be filtered through an element. You have to view it all with softness, because there's gonna be times where you're a little bit irritated. Maybe work's long, or like your business isn't doing as well as it. Just the world might start just happening to you, and then your girlfriend says something. You can take it maliciously, or you can be like, "This girl loves me." So maybe what she said, she didn't mean it in that way. Maybe she meant it in a nicer way. If And that's obviously a lot easier said than done, because sometimes you're just in a mood. But just try and filter the things that she says. Try and filter it in a nice way. Obviously, there is a boundary, and you can tell when someone's mugging you off or like
Yeah,
taking
yeah,
the piss
sure.
out of you. But and this is just general advice for relationships and friendships in general. Like, if you can, it's better to attribute something to ignorance than to malice, especially when it comes to your girlfriend. So maybe she just said something because she wasn't really thinking about it. She just said it,
Mm-hmm.
and instead of creating a fight and trying to attach malice to what she said, just be a little bit more soft for her.
Okay, that's nice.
What about you?
What I would teach my son about romantic relationships?
Yeah.
Oh my god. I don't know. I don't know. I have to proper think about that.
Think about
I mean, I'm just thinking about like the most important pillars, like things that I wished kind of like man
it. It is a
had
bit more of a
done.
difficult question for you to answer, because like,
Yeah, I
you know,
think things that I would wish that maybe that I wished men would have done in relationships, and I think it's about communication, which is so jarring. Well, communication, but I always and you know what,
how's
and
that jarring?
I think no every day like communication. You always have to communicate. I think people love using that words when it comes to relationships, and sometimes I'm just like, oh, yeah, communication, but it is so important, and I
It
think
just really, I do understand what you mean, but it depends on what you mean by communication, because you could just use it as a blanket term, or you could be specific.
I think, and something that I've noticed, especially the last few weeks, and not just from my angle, but also other people's relationships, is like I sometimes feel like we as women, this is a generalized statement, but that's all I've seen so far in my life, most times.
Mm-hmm.
But men are so comfortable with their silence, um, and maybe being scared to speak up about their feelings and their emotions and their boundaries and what they like and what they're not like,
Mm-hmm.
beyond just a point where they're already exploding, you know?
Yeah.
Now, why that is and how can be another topic, but men are just generally so non-confrontational, and when it comes to relationships and just communicating, that they don't say much, and it's always the woman that has to be the bigger person, or has to be the one that's like kind of trying to have a conversation with the man about what's going on. Yes. I think men think that it's very easy for us to do that, but it's actually very difficult, and it takes a lot out of you.
Mm.
And then often to then be met with resistance on top of that, I think it breaks up a lot of relationships more than we think, because I'm already doing something, talking about your feelings and how you feel within a relationship. Okay, maybe we women can make it like a remarks, be like, oh, I'm not happy with that, but to actually come and sit down, be like, let's talk about this, is very hard also for us. And then every single time throughout the relationship, having to be that person is jarring. It makes me not want to be in a relationship at all. And I see it happening with so many relationships, and it's like, come on, guys. I think we as women, we have this idea that the man is supposed to be the strong one, that the one that takes the lead with these things, and be like, let's sit down and talk about it, almost like a dad. I feel like, I don't know if it's like a daddy thing, but it's like, for some reason I always had that idea that is men are the ones that's gonna be the ones who lead, you know, and be like, okay, let's talk about this, like we have to be adults, you know, we have to like think about this, and let's organize, let's plan this, let's try and figure out a way to. But most times men are the ones that are hiding behind a facade that they can't probably keep up anymore if they start opening their mouth and telling you how they feel.
Yeah. And
not just, I'm not talking about breaking down and crying and being vulnerable, but just like, how do you feel about this relationship? I'm not happy with XYZ. I'm or just like, oh, when this happened, that actually annoyed me, or that actually hurt my feelings even. I didn't feel comfortable with when you did that, or when this happened, and the way it's just even communicating your boundaries. I just feel like men really, lots of men just don't have the tools, and thinking women do, when lots of us women, we also don't, but we finding the strength of ourselves, and then to come there and be like, okay, let's, and then to be met with like a eye roll, or like, even though you know that we need that, is really infuriating. You know. So I think, going back to the question, I think I would teach my son to just be able to find the strength in himself to have this uncomfortable conversation with your partner, because that's the make or break. Because that uncomfortable conversation will either make you stronger or end the relationship. Either way, let it be. Let it be whatever it is. So I think I would teach that to my son, like, have that conversation and don't feel ashamed about it, or any way about it. Like, that's what makes you a strong man as well. Like, not hiding away from these conversations.
I agree.
Oh, it's a debate. Can you say no? I'm joking, but yeah, no.
No, I genuinely agree. And I feel like you do need to remember that there's an element of stoicism that's forced upon men who are growing up, and we really, one of the only emotions that we are that is attached to manliness is anger.
Yeah.
So when you're like, say, I feel like men are really good at about complaining about the shit that they don't like, and talking about what angers them and what frustrates them and what annoys them.
Really?
Yep. And I feel like they're uncomfortable with talking about what upsets them and what makes them sad, and at times what makes them happy. Like they're not really comfortable about talking about the full range of emotions. They're comfortable expressing anger and irritation and annoyance because that is what is seen as manly, but they don't want to talk. And sometimes those things that are making you sad and those things that are making you upset are the things that are really worth talking about, but we are not trained to speak about that. When we cry when we're young, we're told not to cry. We're told to actively push away these emotions that are very important in romantic relationships. So that's why I agree that it's something that you need to instill in boys, because by the time they're men, their brains aren't as plastic, so it's way harder to teach them how to actually speak about their emotions. And people tend to avoid things that make them uncomfortable, which is why a guy would just be like, I'm not about to start this conversation because, to be honest, I don't really even know how to speak about it. I have no practice in how to speak about my emotions. And I understand that it's difficult for women, but women have generally more practice in talking about how they feel. Like there is a trope, even though I don't personally assign to this. Like I'll speak to my boys about how I feel all the time.
Yeah.
But there is a trope that when guys link up, they don't talk about themselves. They sometimes they don't even talk. They'll just chill, and they'll say, "Yeah, that's my best friend." That's because we are socialized to actively reject any emotion that isn't anger, because any emotion that isn't anger is feminine, and I don't want to be feminine, so I'm not about to start talking about my feelings. And that's why it's like an eye roll or a blah blah blah, because it's something that they are actually uncomfortable speaking about. So yeah, if you can, all of this, boys don't cry, like boys who don't cry turn into men who scream and shout, like, because they're not, like, emotion, in my opinion, gets expressed one way or another. But if you suppress one type of emotion, it will just turn into another type of emotion. If you suppress your sadness, it will turn into an emotion that you're used to expressing. So if you suppress your sadness, it'll probably turn into anger. Or like if you don't know how to express your happiness, it could express itself in different ways. So emotion, in my opinion, is just energy, and if you suppress it, it'll come out in a different way.
Yeah, and I think, like, for me personally, I think that it often turns into sicknesses, like physical sicknesses, these suppressed things, like, and the second one I was gonna say with my son is the communication part, and then I think what happens a lot, these suppressed emotions turn into like a super ego, and almost like sometimes like an alter ego, because like it's like a macho kind of, like, it's like a behavior where you don't, because there's so much underlying in you, so much cooking of emotions and feelings that you don't accept, is splitting your personalities a little bit. And that's why sometimes I have the feeling with men that when you're with them as a woman alone, or you're intimate with them, because that's when the men let out a lot of emotion during sex, whether they admit it, or obviously they're not saying anything, but it's something as women you can feel. That's a man that, not the man that's out there. It's like an energy, like it's a serious vulnerability. It's like, I can't explain it. It's like a sensual energy where men let out like their emotions and their feelings, a lot of stuff that obviously that they're hiding. And sometimes when you connect so deeply with a man in that department, and he completely switches up into this other personality of himself, like that ego part, that what he shows to the world, and then switches it on you, like that deep moment never happened. This is when you get to like serious fuckboys, and women that are being fooled a little bit. I think at this point I cannot blame it on men, like the women are the victim, because I think as you get older, you also learn and realize, okay, this man might be like this in the bedroom or when you guys are alone, but you clearly can see that he's not gonna carry that on, and he's completely switching it up on you in public, or once he leaves that space with you. I'm not saying, oh, she's the victim and she's got money, but obviously you learn with time that that's what a lot of men do. You have this sacred moment with them when you're alone with them, but all of a sudden, once he's done, he's back in his mask, when I definitely know that what I got was the purest form of him.
So what are you going to teach your son in that regard?
What I'm going to teach my son in that regard is to
be nice to women that you have sex with.
No, to build a strong bridge between. No, because I think men that maybe are more in tune with all the other emotions apart from anger, and they don't have to build this wall between both spectrums of themselves, or both sides of themselves. There's not going to be such a big difference between the man, the sacred man, and the man they're showing, isn't it? So it's not going to be a wall between, it's going to be a bridge between, and you don't have to be in a bedroom with a woman in order to let that out.
It's a good lesson.
You can just be that person in both scenarios, and then it's easier for a woman to then also make a picture, do I want to be with that man or not? Because you're not switching it up.
Yeah, I feel you.
Yeah, that's it. I've got it. I'm done.
Was that good?
I'll find out tomorrow. Okay. Or whenever I look at it. I'll get some posts out of it. 1, 2, 3. I've probably more TikTok stuff. I think a lot of things I talked about today, most people on my Instagram want to be like, this woman is batshit crazy and stupid. But TikTok is a bit more open-minded.